As I mentioned in the riveting demo video, you usually need to finish all the other work on your piece before riveting it together. One of the reasons for this is that if you drill your pieces before bending them, the bends shift the alignment of the holes enough to be unable to fit the wire through them afterward. Worse, if you set your rivets before bending, the holes are unable to shift, although they're being forced to, so the metal buckles instead. The solution for this is to bend first, superglue your parts together, and then drill and set your rivets. Hammering these bent pieces might be a little different than riveting your exercise was. Sometimes you can still use the same bench plate and riveting hammer combination as you would for a flat piece, but you might need to replace the bench plate with a mandrel to fit inside the curve of your piece. If the space is particularly tight so that swinging a hammer into it is still dicey, use a flat-ended punch and a chasing hammer to get inside more safely. Force always takes the path of least resistance. In the case of rivets, this means that bending the wire is easier than upsetting the end. So it's important that your sheets are right up against each other, or the rivet will bend into the space between. However, if your design calls for joining parts with a space between them, you still can, but you have to make it more difficult for the rivet to bend instead of deform, using spacers. One way to do this is to use short, snug-fitting pieces of tubing to reinforce the center span of your rivet wire. If you only put a single standard or tube rivet through your layers, it can act as a simple hinge. Just use the usual riveting technique, but without supergluing the parts together. The movement will be a little stiff, but still movable. This is good for pieces where you want to be able to reposition your parts, but have them hold their position afterward. If you want a more free-swinging movement, drill or file one of the holes a little looser than normal, and slip a piece of paper between your parts before inserting your rivet wire. Shape the rivet as normal, and then pull the paper out. The loose hole and paper reduce the friction between the parts, allowing freer movement.